Hey, what's up guys? John here. 20 million Americans are just hit with a massive cyber attack, including the entire state of Maine.
The state of Maine announced today that 1.3 million Mainers have been impacted by a data breach. Compromised information varies by person, but may include a person's name, social security number, date of birth, driver's license number, and even certain types of medical information.
The entire state of Maine, health records, birthdays, social security information, driver's license numbers, you name it. All this information is just leaked in the dark web. This cyber attack and these chain of events that we've experienced over the last couple weeks, one of which is Mr. Cooper, the third largest mortgage holder in America, leaked all that information in a cyber attack, social security numbers and all that very important, crucial information in a data breach, right? We're walking into what I think is going to be this cyber pandemic, this cyber event that, many people have talked about the last couple of years.
COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
Looks like it's here. I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to show you the facts of what's going on. Please hit the like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube will share this content to educate more people about what's really happening in America and the world. And if you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself for the greatest wealth transfer of all time, we would love to help you. At my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or identity theft, book a call below. GreatCreditFast.com. We'd love to help you. So take a look at this. So Mr. Cooper is one of the largest mortgage servicers in the U.S. About 4.3 million customers and mortgage servicing rights worth about almost $1 trillion, right? $937 billion. Now, I reported on this last week. I thought this was going to get resolved. This is now 2 weeks where 4.3 million customers can't log in and pay their mortgage, right? This is a big, big, big deal. Third largest mortgage holder. And they've admitted that their personal data leaked in the cyber attack, right? So that's 4.3 billion. Then you have the entire state of Maine. Maine says 1.3 million affected by data breach. And they say that the population in Maine is 1.38 million, right? Has a population of 1.38 million, and 1.3 million of which had their information such as, look at this. Social security numbers, date of birth, driver's license, state identification numbers, taxpayer identification numbers, medical information, health insurance information. All of this information now just out there, right? Now just out there. You have to imagine, if all this information is now out there, how many people are going to be able to get access to this data and start applying for credit cards and home loans and business credit and all these different things, right? It's going to be a very, very big problem, I would imagine. So, more than 50% of the data exposed in the breach came from Maine's Department of Health and Human Services, while between 10% and 30% came from the State Department's Education. Several other departments were also impacted from the breach, right? It also brought in external cybersecurity experts to investigate the nature and scope of the incident and conducted an extensive investigation to identify what information has been impacted. So you look at this, 1.3 million plus the 4.3. So you're already, somewhere around 5.6 million. 5.6 million. Then we have this. The attack was reported orchestrated by Russian ransomware group and has impacted more than 70 million people worldwide. So I'm not going to calculate the 70 million, but let's look here. It says comprised 6 million records in Louisiana, right? So that's over 10 million now. Then you have an impacted 4 million people through Colorado Department of Healthcare, right? And then 3.5 million through the Oregon Department of Transportation. So more and more and more people, about 20 million people hit with this cyber attack. So you start to pay close attention to this. It is very fascinating how fast this thing's ramping up, right? Remember just a week and a half ago, banks, U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo, Chase, Truist, all these big banks, they weren't able to process ACH deposits from employers to employees. They've had all these different events that have happened over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, that are becoming much, much, much more common. And so when you look at what they're saying here, it says the breach also impacted several agencies, right? The Office of Controller, Workers' Compensation, Bureau of Motor Vehicles, Department of Corrections, Department of Economic and Community Development, Bureau of Human Resources, Department of Professional and Financial Regulation, and Bureau of Unemployment Compensation. Over 40% of Maine's Department of Health and Human Services staff were impacted. Up to 30% of Maine's Department of Education and others have also had less than 1%. Some states, departments, state agencies, divisions, including Maine Revenue Services, right? You start to look at all this information, and then you kind of connect the dots here. They say that last night, look at this. This is Australia. Australia's port, their entire port was hit with a cyber attack. And this came out, I'll show you the date, November 11th, right? So it came out this morning, and they said that our teams are working diligently to contain the situation. And this is also, it's going to stop all the imports and exports from Australia because of this. So it says our teams are working diligently to contain the situation and determine the impact of our systems and data to safeguard our employees, clients, and networks. We have restricted access to our Australian port operations while we continue our investigation, the company said. This is part of the comprehensive response, which includes engaging with cybersecurity experts, investigating the incident, and notifying relevant authorities. We fully appreciate the importance of this matter, and we assure our employees, customers, partners, and stakeholders that the security and privacy is our top priority. Our goal is to be transparent while ensuring the accuracy and completeness of the information that we share. But if you scroll down here, it says right here, this interruption is likely to continue to a number of days and impact movement of goods into and out of the country. So, I mean, it's pretty serious, right? Department of Australia is working with its stakeholders to consider the impacts of its operations at specific ports. Our priority is to insist that the DP World Australia to resolve the incident so that they can be in a position to restore access to the ports they operate across the country. So when you start to look at all these different situations, like the U.S. bank deposit, that was literally 5 days ago or 7 days ago. And then you start to look at this right here, how they've talked about this literally 2 weeks ago, right before all this stuff was it started happening, right? They said that the global economy could lose 3.5 trillion in systematic cyber attack. Insurance giant Lloyd's of London has published a systematic risk scenario of a cyber attack resulting in global economic loss of 3.5 trillion. The scenario involves a hypothetical but plausible cyber attack on major financial services payment systems, leading to a widespread disruption in global business. Working with Cambridge Center of Risk Studies, the research explored 9 hypothetical systematic risk scenarios. The potential economic impact of these scenarios across 107 countries was calculated with the interactive data tool using GDP as its central measure. The researchers presented global economic losses in 3 levels of severity: major, severe, and extreme. The damage ranged from 2.2 trillion to lowest severity to 16 trillion. 16 trillion. You think about that is half of America's debt. They say that we have 33 trillion in debt. It's about half of our debt. That would just be one event. You just imagine what that would do to every aspect of our life, right? It would completely disrupt everything. In the most extreme scenarios over a 5-year period, the weighted average across these 3 scenarios modeled 3.5 trillion. The 3 countries that would experience the highest 5-year economic loss from this scenario would be U.S., right, China, and Japan. So U.S. would be 1.1 trillion, China 470 billion, Japan 200 billion. According to the analysis, the research noted that the recovery time for individual regions depends on the structure of the economy, exposure levels of resilience. Lloyd said that the findings highlighted a complex and connected risk posed by cyber impacting areas of supply chains and geopolitics. Lloyd's chairman said that the global interconnectedness of cyber means that it's too substantial a risk for one sector to face alone, and therefore we must continue to share knowledge, expertise, and innovation across government, industry, and insurance markets to ensure that we build society's resilience against the potential scare of this risk. Now, they even right here it says January that this group right here warned that this is a cyber catastrophe is imminent. That's pretty. If you look at a lot of their quote unquote predictions over the last, call it 10 years, they're starting to fall in line, right? So when they say this is what things might look like by 2025 or 2027 or 2030, and then you start to look at the chain of events that America has fallen into, it would seem very plausible that they're probably right in the money and that we are walking into a scenario that is imminent. Now, this situation with Maine, 1.3 million households, it is a very, very problematic situation for a lot of these residents of Maine and a lot of the people that are impacted, that have been impacted. But this is nothing compared to what we could potentially see if you see shipping and distribution and hospital services and banking and financial products all being pulled back. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying some of the wealthiest, most powerful people in the world are saying that it's likely imminent, right? There's not likely, it's imminent. That's what they said. A cyber catastrophe is imminent. So what do I think? I think we're walking into a very, very likely chance of some big problems coming over the next, call it a year or so. Like, we're going to see these more and more and more. If you look at just Mr. Cooper and what just happened with banks, I mean, the largest bank in China just had a cyber situation just last week, right? Just last week, impacting U.S. Treasuries. So every few days, we're seeing more and more and more of these. In my bet, I would suggest, given all the drama that's happening overseas right now, that there's going to be more and more reasons of which we're going to be hit by these events, and we're going to be pointing the finger at everyone else. What do you think about this situation? Do you think we're walking into a very, very problematic scenario for America and for the world? Drop below. We'll have a conversation about it. If you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself for what I think is going to be the greatest wealth transfer in American history, we'd love to help you, give you a free strategy session in my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative item under credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. We'd love to give you a free strategy session, and catch you guys next video.